supercomputers, hundreds of thousands of dollars of them. They thought, wow, why don't we just look at all the idle compute cycles that are out there? Like you have your desktop attached to the internet, it's on all the time, and parcel out the computational work that we need done, harnessing millions of idle computers, saving SETI hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, innovation will actually replace inputs if we think about it. I don't know if you remember in January when Mark Anderson, who was the programmer who created Mosaic and then Netscape, wrote that DeepSeek from China, their AI was a profound gift to humanity. And the US banned the export of H100 NVIDIA chips to China to hobble China in their AI race. But necessity is the mother of invention. So they used less powerful chips, but they open sourced their model and they cut energy use by 97.5%. And that day, the US stock market lost $1 trillion. I feel a Dr. Evil moment coming on. $1 trillion. And NVIDIA lost 600 billion, the largest loss of any company in the world's history on any stock exchange. So when you compare to Gemini Ultra, the training was 191 million. DeepSeek was able to train their model for 5.6 million. So actually, rather than be a bad thing, this is actually a great thing. Because when you can dramatically reduce the energy inputs, not only is it more sustainable, it in fact generates new business use cases for AI. You know, when you actually look at an iPhone 15 and you compare it to a Cray 1 supercomputer, the iPhone 15 is 60,000 times cheaper than the Cray 1. It's 180,000 times more energy efficient, and it's 5,000 times more powerful. In fact, what we're doing is we're getting supercomputer performance out of our devices at a tiny fraction of both the energy and the cost. The future will not look like the present or the past. We all know that solar, this isn't a 640% decline. This is a 640x decline. And the cheapest PPA, power purchase agreement, is basically $0.01 a kilowatt hour. That includes both CapEx and OpEx. And so we see these charts all the time about exponential cost declines. The cost of lighting, for instance. They used to have to kill whales and boil the oil down for whale lamp oils. Bad for whales, bad for houses because they'd burn down, you know, fire in the house, not a good thing. Bad for breathing, carbon monoxide, you know, bad all around. And when we move, and these revolutions keep happening because when we move from incandescent or T5s to LEDs, we have this huge drop in efficiency again. And the payback on lighting retrofits is like 3 months typically. Why aren't we doing as much aggressive energy efficiency as we can? AI is being used for preventative or predicted maintenance, where 1,000 points of presence are put on a train's components, and the brakes in car 4A yell out, "Hey, I'm vibrating too much outside of the standard operating procedure. Why don't you replace me tonight?" Because the AI in the database predicts that it'll break down in 2 weeks, and rather than paralyze the train schedule and paralyze the train, we replace it tonight. Predictive maintenance gives you higher uptime at a lower cost, 10% lower for Trenitalia on their €2 billion maintenance program.
Conceivable!
For all you Princess Bride fans. So this is the graph that is freaking out electric utilities about the rise in energy demand for AI data centers. I've just finished writing a piece for Corporate Knights magazine about this. It'll come out in January, where we go to Davos and release the Global 100. But it's really interesting. Hey, Chris, there is no cost for a developer to say, I want to put a data center here, and they will tell 5 different utilities they want to do the same in order to get one approval. And then those other 4 applications that are, in fact, quadruple counted and will never materialize. So a lot of these projections are not based in reality. This is Anthony Diorio, who's the co-founder of Ethereum. This is why averages are very dangerous. 2 handsome guys who have an average net worth of 500 million each. Now, one is worth $1 billion and the other is not, and you figure out which is which. But we really have to innovate. This notion and the testimony before the US government that we need all this power is very interesting. With energy efficiency, I need 0 permitting. I can literally engage in it right now. And by the way, it creates the most employment. With nuclear, which there's discussion in Ontario, it's really 10 years from the time you plan until you get 1 ounce of juice out of the thing. We don't have 10 years. So this crisis is a terrible thing to waste. In Chinese, crisis is 2 icons together. It's danger and opportunity. And whenever we have a fundamental shift, there are both present. Apparently, these 2 icons together also look like mother-in-law. Go figure. So this is Southbrook Winery, which is a LEED Gold facility. At the time, it was the most advanced LEED category. There's now platinum. And Bill Rademeyer was really proud of this, but he hired a consultant on spec who came in and was able to save huge amounts of energy. And by on spec, he wasn't paid unless he actually achieved anything. In the utility room, there was one system that would bring the heat on, and the heat would go up, and another system would bring the air conditioning on. And these 2 systems were fighting back and forth, doubling up on burning energy ad nauseum forever. It's not good enough that we have LEED Gold or LEED Platinum buildings. How we operate those buildings is absolutely essential. And so he got huge savings. Cut his electricity and gas costs 40% with a 4-month payback. Like, if you're not engaged in that kind of energy efficiency, you're literally burning money. We had the largest deficit in Canada's history. 3 years combined was more than 75 years. And that led to the highest level of inflation in 30 years. We have to aggressively engage in energy efficiency because it mitigates risk. And as I was saying, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We got CAFE standards for vehicle fuel efficiency as a result of the 1973 oil crisis. So a phone call from Toronto to Paris, France in 1980, adjusted for inflation, $10 a minute. So if you had 30 people on a global strategic planning conference call for 3 hours, that was a $50,000 phone call, US dollars in 1980. But think about how deflationary innovation and tech is. Today, that call is free on Zoom. So we have to aggressively embrace new ways of working because they are hugely deflationary. Or think about this. The automobile has remained consistent when adjusted for inflation over 100 years. But once we have robo-taxis, the cost drops by 2/3. Now, who's going to bother to buy a car? You know, the utilization rate of a car in Canada is only 4%. 96% of the time, your car is sitting parked somewhere. So why do I need the capital asset? I spoke about this 8 years ago at a conference called Idea City, Canada's equivalent to TED. And a woman afterwards came up to me and said, Jim, that was fascinating, but nobody will ever get in a taxi with no driver.
Hi, Avery.
Maybe that's a good thing.
She said what? She said what? It drives better than you do, babe.
Go. Robot.
200 million miles driven in robo-taxis. Now, little catch, 80%, 85% of those miles are in China, in 19 cities. So I want to argue that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, meaning it's in Shenzhen and Beijing, not in Markham, Mississauga, or Scarborough. So, but if you go to Phoenix, Waymo's been operating for 8 years, or Austin, or whatever. So the future is coming at us, and we need to plan for this. This is Kevin Weil, who's the Chief Product Officer of OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT. And Kevin pointed out when I interviewed him in March that the cost per query is dropping 10x per year. So November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT came out. And over that 1 year, the cost per query, i.e., energy use per query, dropped 10x. And then the following year, it dropped 10x more, which means over 2 years, it dropped 100x. And over 3 years, by November, where we are right now, it's 1,000x. Now, that 1,000x gets taken up by new use cases. Instead of simple queries, we're now creating images, which is more intensive, and videos, again, more intensive. But the new use cases do not exceed the total energy use of 1,000x decline. And so we can't assume that the future will look like the present. We have passed peak gas. Gas cars have fallen 31% in sales since the peak in 2017. And China's leading the way on EVs. Let's actually look at our grid and how it works. We have nuclear, gas, but they're only 30% efficient. 70% of the energy goes up the stack as wasted heat. And then, so we start with 100 units of energy and we end up with 30 by the time it goes into the grid. And then we have these high voltage, high tension lines, and we have line loss, which is another 3%, so it takes us down to 27. And then we take 27 and put it through an incandescent light bulb and get 6 units of energy out of it. So let's review. We start with 100 units of energy and we end up with 6 usable units.
Thank you so much.
Is the solution to build more nuclear power plants, or is the solution to work aggressively at end
And there's the mouse there, so you can use that.
Like, it's insane. We are already grossly oversupplied if we were to have a warlike, aggressive focus on efficiency. And it's not just innovation, it's also speed. It took the airline industry 68 years to reach 50 million customers. And it took Pokemon Go 19 days. So my question is your company, is your industry innovating and changing as fast as the market is changing? Now, some people might say, oh, Jim, this Pokemon Go is a game for little children. It's such an unfair comparison. Okay, well, ChatGPT took 50 days to reach 50 million customers. Are you changing as fast? This uncertainty because of, if anybody saw the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi's philosophy, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. This is the philosophy of Mr. Trump on tariffs. Tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs on, tariffs off. It's led to the greatest uncertainty in business history in modern times. In fact, the uncertainty index measured by the Financial Times of London is about twice as high as the peak in the pandemic. So how can we have certainty amid uncertainty? And this is why efficiency is so important. I get certain returns in an uncertain environment. The World Economic Forum this year, I go every year, WEF's job report said 39% of the average global worker's skill set is no longer relevant by 2030. 39%. And that means we need an industrial scale upskilling and reskilling. Upskilling, 61% of your skill set is still valid by 2030. You need to train and learn for that 39%. But reskilling says, hey, I'm used to scything wheat, you know? And unless you're Mennonite, Hutterite, or what would another one be? Amish, scything wheat isn't a viable skill set. We also have to work in an interdisciplinary way, which is why the innovation focus is great. Here's a 2x4, and if you have one 2x4, it will hold 626 pounds of weight. Any guesses of what two 2x4s together will hold? It's actually just shy of 3,000 pounds. And three 2x4s? Just shy of 9,000 pounds. Now, why is this? Because every 2x4 has a fault in it somewhere. But when you put it with another 2x4, its fault is made irrelevant. And when you put three together, collectively their faults are irrelevant. And this is actually why you see in construction 2, 3, and 4 2x4s together in wall studs. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is a QR code. You just open your smartphone camera, point it to the screen, and I'll be happy to accept your connection request. Your network will instantly grow by 27 million people. And if you take a picture of this, we're not going to have time because we might take a couple questions, but if you take a picture of this later, you can answer 75 seconds of questions at this URL and download 12 resources, including articles and videos. There's been a video I put up on AI 7 months ago that last night broke 3 million views. So you can see some of what we talked about today.